Hey, everybody. Welcome to Life Cycles Live. It's me, Luke Marino. It's her, Miss Suzane Greeman. Suzanne, how are you?
Hi, everybody. Oh, I'm awesome. You couldn't have picked a better day. Today is a lovely day to be doing this, and I'm so happy to be here with you.
Yeah, it's been, we were trying to make sure we got this soon because we had some schedule issues to work out, but this just was like the best day to get it done. And I'm excited for you because I know you've got a lot of stuff revolving around this topic going on in your world of work right now. And so that it's perfect timing. And as always, this is Life Cycles Live. You can catch us all over the place. We're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook. I'm sure we're on some random place I don't even know about. And it's all brought to you by East Partnership, where you can find amazing courses from Suzanne and Greeman Asset Management Academy. She's got a fantastic line of asset management courses there. And I'm about done with all the advertising, so we can get right to it. Today's topic is awesome. It's one of those
Yes.
things that I feel like people struggle a little bit with the idea of change, but then it becomes even more like difficult once they have to execute on change. So I just love
Yes.
the topic of change management.
I mean, and it's an exciting one for us because it is work that came out of working with our clients. And what we've kind of found, even for me as an employee over the years, and then transitioning to being a consultant, what we found is sometimes you knock on the door so hard and you get the answer yes, and then you freeze because A, you weren't expecting to hear yes, B, you actually don't know what the next step is to get this thing going, so you kind of freeze in place, right? I'll never forget when I was a really a young pop engineer. I went to my boss, and always the complaint in that question was that they always find a way to cut the budget. So I decided to go in advance of the cut, and I just went arguing like, listen, we need to get this budget, and there's so many things wrong, and we need to get it fixed, and risk it. And I went all probably even full Jamaican on the dude. And he turned around and he said, okay. I said, okay, what? He said, I'm going to give you all the money that you're asking for because you can't spend it. You don't have the capability in terms of, you don't have all of the engineering that you need to be able to spend it. You don't have all of the contractors. You don't have all of the support in place. So here it is. Go ahead. Go for it, Suzanne. Take the whole budget. And I
Wow.
froze. So part of knocking on the door is being prepared for that yes, and when it happens, what do you do? And so when we looked at what's happening across, I think people are getting more and more familiar with asset management. More companies are implementing an asset management system. So what actually is the holdback with all of this now? Why are the implementations not going the way that we expected them to go? And really, it is about how the change management around that asset management system is being done.
Wow. I love that. Yeah, because we fall in love with the idea of it, the new program, or even just like drastic improvements to an existing program. And then it's like, all right, we're all bought in. You got sponsorship, you got everybody on board, just like you said. And then you kind of like hit this roadblock where it's like, all right, now that I got to put like words to action, what is that? Where do I start? What does that mean? And
Right,
all of that is happening up against this hurdle of just being comfortable with and managing well change, right? So change is so
right.
difficult for us to naturally manage. So yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting about it is that now you wanna hit the ground running, and where do you start? Like, what is the first thing that you do? um, these companies that we're talking about, some of them are 100 years old. So how are you going to walk inside there and tell people, especially people who have been there for probably close to the age of the company, to tell them that, something is wrong? First of all, we need to be doing something differently. um, why what we're doing is no longer effective. How do you go about having those conversations? And what you'll find now is that you quickly start to understand like the importance of getting the executive sponsor, but also getting the right executive sponsor. And how do you negotiate that? And then starting to have the conversations, and you realize, okay, so there's a huge difference between somebody who understands asset management and somebody who accepts asset management or
Mm.
accepts the new direction. And the road between the two is a road of engagement. And how do you build all of that into the process simultaneously with the artifacts that you're trying to implement? In other words, yeah, I want to do a policy, and yeah, I want to do a strategy, but how do you ensure that those things stand up after you've put them in?
Yeah.
How,
That's wild. And I think it helps with adoption, right? Because I think some people just fear that this stuff is like good hypothetical content to put structure in place, but they don't view it as actionable. They don't
right,
view like asset management as like an actionable thing. They think it's just like this overarching strategic perspective. But
right.
you couldn't be further from the truth if you're doing it right.
Precisely, and so many layers to it. But if you think about even something very basic that you want to implement in the organization, you have to have the conversations, you have to have the buy-in, you have to have the training, you have to have the structure behind it, so that it has a place to land. Because what we're talking about is, when you eventually put your system in, you put all the artifacts in, how do you make it sustainable? And what do we mean by sustainable? How does it sustain itself after you pull away all of the hype? Because when you're rolling out, is a lot of fun. You're having meetings, you're having workshops, people are going to training. If you're in the Caribbean, there's a special lunch. You might go to a fancy restaurant, or they might bring lunch in, and you have a lot of talks. The consultants are around, they're propping you up, and they're like, oh, you got a question. Oh, yeah, you just do this, you do that. And that lasts for a while. All of that happiness and fun lasts for a while. How does your asset management system survive that? How do
Mm.
you ensure that you don't fall into the trap of, okay, consultants write a document and they give it to you, and then it ends up as shelfware for the next how many years? How do you avoid that? And it has to do with having a deliberate path of engagement, but also some of the more structural elements of it has to be built into your change management approach, which means that you actually need a change management model to implement asset management changes. And that's kind of what we get into.
Wow. So there's a separate model just for managing the change on the rollout.
That's right. And that model is geared, we call it the Regap model, because we look at R for readiness. How do you make the organization ready for this? How do you understand how they're ready, but also make them ready? And then we have E for engagement. So, how do you engage, not just in the rollout phase, but how do you engage forever? Because you'll be engaging people forever in asset management. G for governance. What are the actual structural elements that make sure that the system is accountable, the stakeholders are accountable, and so on? And then the analysis part of it. How do you know how much asset management you need? Because one thing that's going to kill it is to do too much, do more than you
Mm.
need, but also to do too little, do less than you need. So how do you know that? How do not just you know that, how do you get the organization to understand that that is what they need?
Mm.
Because without a structured way of looking at it, then different people in the organization will feel differently about the different things. So for example, somebody who's been working with the asset might say, oh, but we've been doing asset management forever. Like, how what are you talking about? How, if you're in an electrical plant, a power generator plant, you say, well, how have people been getting power in this community for decades, right? And substitute that and put water. How have people been getting water? How have people been getting cement? Pick whatever you want. So you'll have those conversations until you have a structured way to say, this is where we're at, this is where we need to go, right? And this is how much we need to do every month, every year until we get there. And then, of course, the P is for now planning, and planning that across a period of time, because understanding that these companies that we're talking about are companies that take time to do things. Nothing happens overnight, right? So when you look at what is that model that you're going to be using to apply to asset management change, so that when you go ahead and start to put in all the other things that you need to put in, there is that structure behind it, structure of change, that you're engaging, you're making the organization ready, and people can rely on this, not this year, next year, but for years to come. And that's what we're talking about.
Wow. It's it. I think it can be. So how do you deal with the intimidation factor? I mean, because especially as like a consultant, right? Because you're dealing with people that are trying to digest large amounts of new information about standing up these programs. How do you ease their concerns over being intimidated by such a large effort?
I'm going to say for that, multi-pronged approach. First of all, you need to be a very kind person. And some of the kindness that you have actually comes from a place of your own personal experience. So you need to be a kind person, and be kind to people, and also be generous. Um, Thinking about how you were yourself once, understanding that the organization has constraints. There are reasons that the organization has been doing things the way that it has been doing. It's not because the organization is bad, it isn't even because it is wrong. What is happening is that the context that the organization is in, both nationally, globally, industry wide, all of those things are changing. So we are saying asset management is going to help you to respond to that. Your asset management system is a key part of your business model to be able to respond to that. Um, so it takes that. It takes knowledge. It takes a structured approach. Folks have to know, not just invite me to a meeting today, but they need to know as well, what's the process, what's going to happen next, what's going to happen next year. What I had one client that says, let's go through what an implementation plan could look like for us. you know what are they signing up for? People need to understand that. So it takes that. It takes having, it's a marriage between the consultant and the organization. So if you're using a consultant, make sure it is somebody who is fit for that journey. So you get, you're gonna be in bed a long time. So get somebody who is fit for that journey. And like I said, I cannot overstate. We go through the same things when we talk about who is the executive sponsor. It has to be a personality that is wide enough. So we're not looking for the narrowest of thinkers. We're looking for the widest of thinkers, and somebody with the emotional space to accommodate other people.
I
So
love
so
that.
it takes all of those things, because to be kind to people, you need your personal experience, life experiences, and so on. But you also need the emotional space, and some people struggle with that.
Yeah, and I love that you're talking about the sponsor in this way, because when I teach project management and we talk about sponsors, one of the things I find interesting in the learners is like who they assign as a sponsor. They'll
Yeah.
go with like a general like organization, like it's not even like a person. It's like U.S. Navy or company X, and I'm like,
Right.
hey, how do I pick up the phone and contact company X? I need a person,
That's
and it
right.
needs to be the right person. It's not just a
Right.
person with position authority. It has to be the right type of leader, right, to help drive this thing forward. That's part of managing the risk and the change associated with implementation. I love
That's
it.
right. That's right. So it's that depth of it. And you know I see Mohammed just dropping in with a comment, but when you think about it, also part of being kind to people is not invalidating people's experiences. Oh yeah, you're wrong. You're wrong. No, it's not about that. It's 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 about really, because like I say, there are reasons and probably historical context behind why the organization is operating the way that it does. And indeed, it's some parts of that, probably a whole lot of it, works significantly well for a period of time. Now we're looking at what is this new context that we have found our assets in? What is going on in the business environment? What is going on with even things as simple as labor availability? What is going on with the supply chain? What is driving the need to manage asset information because things aren't at your fingertips the way that it used to be, or the organization can't afford to stock all of the parts that it used to be able to afford to stock in years gone by? What is happening now? This morning, my employee and I, we had an interesting conversation about the different generations. My parents, when they went to work, what they wanted, there was honor and dignity in simply having a job.
Right.
It didn't need to be anything more than that. They could go to work every day, boss could yell at them, whatever it was, there was just honor and dignity in dressing up in the morning and going to work.
Isn't that wild?
um, our generation came along. You know what we wanted? We wanted the job, but we also wanted something called meaningful work. you
Hmm.
know so the work had to be meaningful. It had to mean something to me, to my family, to people in the community, etc. And then, new generation. I'm not an expert on all the generations, but the younger kids who are coming in, people who are 25, they must have work. It must be meaningful. And meaning has changed too, right? So it includes some of the hyper trends that we're seeing around not destroying the environment, being clean, and so on. But work must also be interesting for them, and those things are changing. How you hire and so on, all of that is changing. So now, can we rely on people to have ad hoc, informal, analog type information about the assets anymore? We said no. The risk of that is getting too high. So we should be in a position, when we are talking about what we're changing in relation to asset management, to be able to explain to people that this is why this is changing. This is why we need to change. This is what the context of the organization is throwing up at us. This is what the business environment is throwing back at us. How do we respond to it as an organization?
Right now, somebody's like, I know how to make it more interesting. We'll just make them manually record everything. No, wrong interesting.
Make it an app. Put an app on everything. Go there. Want to make some cement? Boop. Make an
That's
app.
it. Every time I touch the button, I need a little like digital explosion of confetti on the screen or something.
But it's amazing that you say that. It's very funny. But probably about 10 years ago, I ran into some folks from a cement plant. And you know how they were doing training for the new operators? They were doing it virtually with
Yeah.
um, 3D technology and so on, that people could actually walk through the plant and touch things and so on. So applying the technology to what is happening, some of those things are changing the way that people work. But back to the asset management system, the point that I'm making is, to be able to translate that to the folks in the organization, so that they walk away not with a feeling of deficit, that, oh my God, I have failed. I have been doing this wrong my entire life. And the hammer has fallen, and this is what is going on. To, you know what, we've done this well. It worked well this time. The actual environment of the company is is now in hyper change. You know, military people call it VUCA. It's hyper. It's volatile. It's ambiguous. It's always there's always uncertainty. You know, so that is what is happening, and probably your one constant is your it's gonna be your asset management system.
Mm. So does So if you're starting out with nothing, obviously the challenge is different than if you have a system in place. But one of the things I've always found fascinating is that sometimes it's harder to change something that exists than it is to implement a new way of doing business, because people are just, it's not that you're introducing new habits, is that you're trying to change old ones, and sometimes that's harder. Do you see the same thing?
Oh, absolutely. And it would be very nice to find that company that says, "Hey, we're not doing anything. Can you start us up?" But more often than not, you're interacting with persons and like how many times do you get a greenfield plan to start an asset management system? You know, I've never had one. Uh, Way, way, way long ago, we created a brand new plant. It was inside of an old plant, but we had the opportunity to play. But how many times do you get that? You don't get that very often. So we're always working with brownfield situations. Companies exist, and sometimes you get a bit of a blessing that one subsidiary is part of a corporate group and they are mandated. It's something that's rolling down from the top. That's a bit of a blessing. But if not, then you have to really put your change management model to work so that you are engaging and, as we say, building the road that you want to walk on, kind of thing.
Right. So I guess, and so considering that, like if you were starting, let's say you were starting with like renovating an existing program, or updating your current practices or something like that. What are kind of like the fundamental things you just absolutely can't live without when it comes to change management in those situations?
So again, very good question, and I'm gonna take you back to the Regap model. Start with understanding where people are at, because you can't meet them any place but where they're at. So
Right.
even if somebody is, I'm not on board. We're doing everything good. I don't know why you're here. We've been good. We're doing it well. It's not us. That's another thing. It's not us. It's those guys. Usually
Those
those
guys.
guys. so
You
so
have no idea
we're
about those guys. Ah, man.
spent a good few years crawling around cement plants, and that's
Right.
as close to a university as you could get, right? So
I love
so
it.
wherever people are at, let's meet them there. And then once we start to develop together as a group, so it's understanding the readiness, but it's also building the readiness through the training, through the coaching, through the interactions. And that starts to bring people to the table and also starts to bring an acceptance of where we're at. And then you get into what is going to be your engagement. And you're doing your engagement to build a commitment from where it is at to where you want it to be, and to break down those fibers of resistance. So, what are usually the fibers of resistance? The fibers of resistance lay often in the fact that the company has its own silos. Um, it probably lays in the fact as well that other than the maintenance folks, nobody else has been paying like key attention to the assets. Um, it lays in the fact that they probably don't have real formalized systems in place,
Mhm.
real formalized information. So all of those could lead up to what actually is creating those barriers. More often than not, what the I think the biggest reason for resistance that I've seen is people just don't see themselves in the change. Like, when you do this, where will I be?
Mm.
When you do this, I'm top dog right now. I have my drawings. I understand the equipment. People call on me. I'm well respected. I'm top dog right now. When you do this, you take all the information and you formalize it and you put it all in a system, where will I be?
Mm. Some
Will I still be
self-preservation.
power? Will I still have my power base? Will I still be respected? I may just have to retire. Where will I be? So if people don't see themselves in the change, it take that's probably the guys on the floor. What about the guys in engineering? If you start up a new asset management team, and then one of the things they will do probably is to come up with a decision making system and say,
Mm.
okay, this is how capital projects are going to be prioritized from here on in. The engineering guys might say, so what do? We used to do that. That used to be our thing. We used to control the purse strings, and suddenly we don't. So if people don't see themselves in the change, after the change, and being successful and fulfilled after the change, that's a challenge. That's a
I really
challenge.
agree.
And so when you're dealing with change management, we talk about the readiness of the organization, the engagement. Everything after that, the engagement included, happens at the individual level. It is only the individual that makes that choice to join your revolution that you're trying to start.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, that's a big that's a really good point about someone seeing themselves on the backside of that like successful implementation. Wow, that's really cool. If if they get to the point where they can see that, right, they can experience that kind of
Oh,
consciously.
they're sold.
Yeah, they
If they
start pulling. Yeah.
if if they see themselves in it, and they see, simple fears that people might have. When you do that, will I lose my job? Let's take that one. If people see that, okay, they won't lose their jobs, there's a way for them to participate. You're not losing anything. Actually, you're gaining sophistication of work. Some of the things that you're doing, you shouldn't even have been doing them. Nobody should have been asking you to do that, because that information should have been somewhere put down, be made available in the first place. So if they see that they gain, the company gains, their department gain, and we all gain, then, oh, this isn't going to kill me. Oh, I'm in. I'm ready. They'll
Mm,
be with you.
mm,
Our problem, I think, comes from a lot of deficit thinking that happens in organization, in teams, and with people, that in order for somebody to win, somebody else has to lose. So the people who are doing asset management are going to win, and other people are going to lose. It's not about that. And
yeah, that
nobody starts to win until everybody is doing asset management.
yeah that that's real, right? It's like I don't want to say like a scarcity mindset, but that's
Right.
kind of is like there's only so
That's
much.
what it is.
Yeah, we're always battling over these limited resources, and if you're winning, I must be losing, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Which is funny because that just comes down to the heart of trust, right? It's like, and I think Rob Koblarowski and I were talking about this last time Rob and I were on. How imperative trust is to the whole thing, and
Absolutely.
yeah, I think it would be really hard to manage change if with a trust deficit being in place. Well, I know
It,
it is because I've tried. It
and
didn't work.
it's so interesting, and that's one of the things we check when we check for readiness. When we do a readiness assessment, we check for that, because what causes a breakdown of trust. Why does one person say, I don't trust the other person? um Part of it, yes, there's a slight of the eyes and all that people could look at. I just don't like him. Oh, my stomach says that that's not a good person. But largely it's people, organizations, and systems that don't deliver on their promises.
Uh,
That's that's the biggest part of it. So
yeah,
um as an organization, as a management team, you keep pulling the organization through these changes. And when you do that, oh my goodness, yeah, you're back with that Jedi story, Mike. He did say that, Luke did say that he was named after a soap opera guy, Mike.
you want to hear something funny about that? So I said that on Mike's episode, and then my dad tells my mom, "Hey." your son just told everyone that he was named after a soap opera star. So, Mike, you got me in trouble with my mom, who's an Italian Irish lady. This is never a good thing. She goes, "What are you talking about? No, you're not." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? You told me that." She goes, "This is what she says. I never told you that. Your dad made that up to make fun of you."
Oh, I love Charlie. I love
And I'm
Charlie.
like, I don't know which one of you is right and which one of you is wrong, but what's the real answer? She's like, "I just always like the name." I'm like, "Nah, nah, can't be
Oh
it."
my goodness.
I
Oh my
can't.
goodness. But
So
you know,
almost tore a whole family apart.
this is this is this is this is hilarious. But yeah, so you pull the organization through all of these changes. And in a very uncoordinated way. We called my name for them, some of these companies, when they do this kind of thing. That disease is called initiativitis. So 1 minute you hear about lean, you're doing lean. A
Initiative Tiger.
initiativitis.
Okay. I've been wrapping my head
So
around it. Gotcha.
about a decade and a half ago, it was all putting in a quality management system.
Yeah.
And you're doing this, you're doing that, and you're doing everything except actually doing something that is really fundamental in how it shifts value and how it brings value to the organization, to the assets, and so on. So if organizations apply change management principles correctly, and do that, and you don't have to use my Regap model. That's the one that I'm using. I figured out from experience that's the one that I train people on. But whatever you're using, there are lots of change management models out there, and I subscribe to a few of them as well. As a matter of fact, using Regap also leans on using ADKAR. um, but whatever it is, apply it correctly and recognize that one of the fundamental rules that cannot be broken about change management is that it happens at the individual level. So you need people who can reach people, and you also need to be reaching people where they're at. And if and that takes emotional space, it takes all of that we spoke about before. But
So
that's really the issue with people and trust. So if the organization actually doesn't have a good track record of implementing change correctly, guess where that trust level is at?
yeah, it's gonna be super low. Yeah. We
Or if changes result in, sorry, if changes result
a
in
negative
people
outcome.
being left in a deficit mode. Yeah, you said that's not going to happen, but the last time you did, 50 people got laid off.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Those things result in, and it's not that we're tying a company's hand to say you can't lay off people. That doesn't really happen through asset management. But it's not that we are telling the companies that. It is, if you want to do that, be upfront about that. You know,
Mm.
don't mask it under other things.
So
People are
this is exactly why I make the case that just sometimes it's better to have someone facilitate this stuff. I mean, you're too close to the problem. You're not the right personality to be an independent, like unbiased implementer, guiding other people. You don't have the right relationships established with the people that are most impacted by the change. Any of those things, it's like, all right, these are flags to bring in
mhm,
someone, anyone that's the right person to help out with that kind of change. Because yeah, otherwise you're gonna get part of the way there, and then you're gonna hit a roadblock that you just can't overcome by yourself. I think it was hard for me as a person who tries to do, I'm like, I want to try that. It's not that I can or can't do that. It's just that if I don't try it, how will I ever know? And
right,
I think some people get like, especially in like and I hate to, I don't want to pick on people in the maintenance and reliability community, but we're fixers,
right,
fix stuff. And,
right,
you know, we put out fires and we tackle difficult challenges. And then in the asset management world, we're solving big overarching things that impact drivers, business
right,
drivers. And you got to go stand in front of the powers that be and explain those types of things. So you're always in this mode where you're overcoming these challenges and trying to build things. So you feel like
right,
you're almost like emboldened or empowered to try and do it yourself.
Right.
Not the fact that you're so busy and that you need this change as much as everyone else, I think lends itself to like kind of pointing to getting some help.
Absolutely. And, you hit on a few things. I'd say if we talk about the executive sponsor, now it might be natural that one particular person in a particular role should be the executive sponsor. But you want to think carefully about that because you also want an executive that can engender the support of other executives. You want an executive that understands that the organizational value chain, understands how the organization creates revenue through its assets. So therefore, you're not going to pick the person who is least in touch with that and who understands that the least. On the personality side, again, you want a wide enough thinker that can speak to the organization and somebody who has credibility. So you also, excuse me, don't want the person who has had the least amount of credibility with changes to be able to do that. And it is not by accident that when we're talking about asset management change, we say executive sponsor, because you need somebody at the executive level to be that sponsor and maybe even the champion. So we've focused a lot of our asset management efforts lower down in the organization. What we're seeing is that that in itself is leading to another kind of failure because of the lack of executive and board level involvement that we're seeing now, because it has been, I'd say, asset management has been riding a little bit low in organizations. So that's one thing. Then there are the organizations that believe that they can take it all on themselves. And if you have the resources with the credibility, that is the thing. Not just to have the resources, you could have the bodies, but you have the resources with the credibility, then you can do that. Because recognizing asset management it's an assurance program, it's a risk management program. So therefore, you need people who can see it in that light and see it as one of the lines of defense of the organization. So therefore, your asset management champion needs to be business oriented. So we're not necessarily here talking about um, a team of 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 hands-on tradespeople. When
Right.
we're talking about asset management, we're talking about something that sits higher up and in a way that it can then engender and be influential to the entire organization. Because again, asset management, remember what it is, it's multidisciplinary, it's a
Right.
multidisciplinary business approach. It's not a technical approach, it's not a maintenance approach, it's not an engineering approach, it's a business approach for how we continually deliver stakeholder value. And our most powerful stakeholders are where? They're outside the organization, they're not inside the organization.
Right. Yeah, I think that you're hitting on something that is one of the bigger challenges in change management for something that's like a new initiative is, well, you know what? I take that back. It is a significant challenge for new initiatives, but it also exists in existing programs, and that is if someone that doesn't have the appropriate level of authority or influence identifies this and becomes the driver for change, it's very hard for that person to succeed in a way that's going to impact the pro at the program level, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if maybe you're a junior manager or you're even someone a little closer to the work, and you find this passion for changing something that you know can help the organization, what's your advice to that person on influencing the right people in the organization to take it serious?
You know, I always say I say to my kids all the time, when I tell you not to do something, you must turn around and ask me, how do I know? And how do I know that? I've been in organizations and been blooded from head to toe, being that junior person trying to, trying to get
Beat
things
about the head.
head to toe. When I tell you scars, it's good plastic surgeons that has saved me from looking like little scar face all over, because I've been knocked about in organizations. That's why I'm seeing this, you know. So I would say be open to the fact that as excited as you are and as passionate as you are about asset management, that you may not be the champion, you may not be the executive sponsor, and that the executive sponsor does need to come from the executive ranks of the organization. And it that also, that executive sponsor may not even be your manager. So be excited about the fact that you're gonna be working on working on this team or as a part of this, but it may not necessarily be that.
All right, we just got a question, actually two questions in. One is from Mohammed, and he's asking, what are some challenges that you faced when you were implementing a new asset management uh, program for a company?
So without a doubt, it is gonna be around the readiness of people to hear the message. It has to also do with how much of their information they have fully defined. So for example, we go into an organization and we say asset management is here to deliver your business strategy. Can you give us your business strategy? Can you share with us your value framework so we can see what is happening? And usually that's where the fights start, because those things, they exist but not in a way that we can work with them. So a lot of organizations are informal with their information and don't actually have all of their information put together in a way that supports that. Another hiccup that we tend to see is companies think that this will be done and dusted by the end of the year. No, it will not. You'll be doing asset management for the rest of your life. You're already doing some parts of it.
Mm.
The company will never stop doing it. Once you formalize it, you'll be doing that forever. It's not a fad. It's not an initiative. It's not a thing. It's a management system. It's a part of the business model of your organization if you are an asset dependent firm. So
Gotcha.
those are some of the things. Small other small obstacles. The realization that it involves people other than who they would prefer to talk to every day. So engineers, maintenance people would not prefer to be talking to finance, IT, and HR every day. And then when we find out, oh, we have to be in the same training with them, we have to be in the same workshop. Why do those people need to be there? And so that's why we go through the training and the familiarization upfront to ensure that people understand that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Living on ships, you kind of have that like camaraderie, but you also have a lot of
Not a
let's see,
rivalry.
yeah, healthy rivalry, right? It's like, I gotta go to training with the ops guys or with the, whatever. It's like that resonates with me because sometimes you're wondering, like, well, if they're here, why do I have to be here? Well, that's because
Correct.
we're on the same ship together, dude.
We're on the same ship, which is, I heard a good one recently. Rising tide floats all ship, but tidal wave will sink the ship too. So,
That's
and,
right.
and it's sinking for all of us.
That's right. Speaking of ships, this is an old salt here. It's my buddy Jose. Uh, Effective change management should focus both on process improvement as well as the people side and their buy-in to this process improvement.
Absolutely, absolutely, you're 100% correct. So what we've seen in organizations though is usually what needs to be improved from a process perspective is usually well defined. We see that all the time with asset management. The lacking part of it, while we're talking about change management here today, is usually the people side of it is lacking.
Mhm.
But there's a fantastic graphic that I use both in my work and in my training, which shows both of them running in parallel. So you do have the asset management process improvement happening, and you're running alongside that with the people side of it, the culture and everything. So they're both happening together. What we're trying to drill home to folks is that one can't happen without the other. But more often than not, what people have in place or a pretty good understanding is that the processes that they're trying to change. So the end result of it is, and in change management, we focus not just on making the process changes, but the end of it, that sweet cherry spot where we want to be, is that integration of asset management processes with the organization's business processes, in particular those that deal with risks. So if you have an enterprise risk management system, we want to be integrating with those processes, but also more importantly, the ones that spend money. So that's the end goal for us, for asset management to influence those processes and to be a part of it. So not just to develop your asset management change processes, but to also integrate them with the organization's business processes as well.
I love that because, to me, the whole thing with asset management, and I am not the asset management guru in this call. She is. I don't know how to do this, but she, Suzanne is the expert on this. It's just my 2 cents, my little opinion. But I always viewed asset management as kind of like connection of business drivers to all these activities that we're doing
Correct.
to support the physical assets. Like that's the whole gist of asset management is like, why manage those assets? Because they are directly contributing to the value of satisfying business drivers. And without that, there's no linkage, right? So it's like,
Correct.
yeah. So
Correct. It is what we're doing all day in asset management is really understanding how to allocate. Organizations have all of these capitals, but how do you go about allocating them correct to the correct level of priorities based on hey Paul, based on the organization's stakeholders and what they need. So when you go ahead and look at it in that way, you have the processes, and this is what we found too, by the way, Jose, over the years, teaching asset management courses and realizing that, okay, so people are understanding now the processes that need to be changed, and realizing that that was only part of the battle. We're only part of the way there, because then they were going back to their organizations and still the systems were not being implemented properly. And the part of it that was really missing is that part. But getting everything to work together and coming to that point that your asset management processes are fully integrated with your business processes, so your decision making systems around how money is spent in the business, that is influenced by your asset management processes. That's where we want to get to.
I don't know if I should put his comment up on the screen.
Safety first, Paul. Safety.
He's in the water
Safety.
plant.
I think he can swim.
Well, that just shows you how dedicated he is to supporting his friends. Paul's awesome. Yeah, so I think that one of the more intimidating parts about change management is the fact that people are like, I don't want to say it's a survivalist instinct to try and avoid danger, like avoid the rocky shoal, uh, stay out of trouble, right? Because like you're trying to build a good reputation, you're trying to make people happy, you're trying to do these things. What if I fail? What if I've got this really great thing to drive, um, potentially drive innovation into what we're doing or to improve things, but it fails? Like, how do you ever overcome that fear of failure? So to me and you, it might not be a real thing because we've been there. we've experienced it, we realize, oh, look, I didn't die. I'm here. I still have a job. I'm good, right? But I think there's like getting over that hurdle is hard for some people.
You know, and absolutely. So part of a very deliberate engagement strategy within your change management package, or within your model, is actually how do we take away that fear of failure from folks, both the folks who are putting their necks on the line to promote this asset management system, but the folks that are also being asked to participate. How do you take it away? And your approach has to deliberately do that through genuine, authentic communication, but also through real structural things like planning out a roadmap. If people can see what is going to happen logically next, the next, first, second, third, then that takes that away. Like I mentioned earlier in the conversation, I had my one client that said, well, talk to us about the implementation plan, and we went through a whole session on it. Okay, so this is what it is. So they were probably thinking the implementation plan was a big thing, that was a big massive thing that was going to get thrown at them, and they were going to have to do it all in one shot, and it was going to take up everybody in the whole organization just to get it done, just to prove themselves worthy of asset management. So taking that away, take that fear away. That is all doable. Ordinary people in other companies have done it. It's all doable. And we're going to pace ourselves in doing this. That's the other thing. We're on a path, we're on a journey. We don't expect maturity improvement or 100% maturity improvement overnight. We're on a path, and this is what we're going to be doing step by step. And I think those are the things that will actually ease the fears that people have, and get more people involved.
Yeah, I always, I was just talking to my graduate students last week about this. That change is an opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have this fear of change or this uneasiness with change, then try and look at it through a different lens and realize like you're fearing an opportunity. Like it doesn't feel natural when you say that. You're like, oh no, I look forward to opportunities. Well, here's an opportunity to make something better. And if you fail, that's part of it's not about whether you're gonna hit road bumps or you're gonna have issues. It's about how you respond to those things, because
Right.
you won't truly fail unless you quit or give up. Even initiatives that have been tried and in the end didn't reach the level of maturity that maybe you initially intended, but you learned a lot about what was good and bad for you guys, and you did fix some things, and you did get a lot of value out of that. That's a success too. I mean, it's just, how you qualify success, I think really matters. And I think that's a message
Mm-hmm.
almost more for the sponsors
Yeah,
in this conversation.
absolutely. And you hit on something that this is also one of the things that we try to understand when we look at the readiness of the organization. How do we learn from what has not worked in the past?
Mm.
So I had one organization that, when they responded to our assessment, they clearly indicated that this particular change petered out because the executives took their foot off the pedal and they went elsewhere, doing other things, and so did everybody else,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
This one didn't work because it didn't have any inclusion of ground floor people, shop floor people. So we start to learn, and so we document these things, and we say, then we have to build these things into it. Now let's talk about what was successful. What did you enjoy? What was a change that was successful, and what did you enjoy about it? And then people are able to identify, this one had executive support. This one was well promoted. This one had an executive sponsor that was there toe to toe every day, all day, every day. This one had inclusion of the union. This one had different things. And so you look at it and you say, oh, that's what it takes for a change to be successful in this organization. And so we incorporate it. and you position the organization then to become a learning organization that learns from its own mistakes. And as a consultant who now works in other companies as well, we can say, and we have seen this not work or this work well in other companies for you to consider as well, and you put everything together. But this notion that we will start from scratch every single time isn't actually correct. We have done a lot of things in organization that we can and should learn from.
Yes, yes. It's funny when I teach project management. I'm like, hey, the last thing you do is gather lessons learned, and then
Right.
document them and store them. And then
Right.
the next thing you do is the next time you start a project that can benefit from that, pull up those lessons learned and review them.
That's
And
right.
people miss that part all the time, and it's a little frustrating. They
All
remember
the
they saw
time.
their show, they just don't remember what it was on.
All the time. And I'd say, one of the reasons to have, so we talked about the sponsor, one of the reasons to have a really good champion in the organization as well is, you take the focus off of the consultant. Put the consultant as a tool. We're there to help you. Don't make the consultant the star.
Yeah.
Make your organization, make your assets the star of this whole process.
Mm.
And then you'll start to see the quality of your people for what they really are, because there are some high quality people in organizations. We don't get to see them. So if when you look at all of your business processes that need to be implemented, when we get into working with different people, different groups in the organization to look at different types of business processes, you know each of those has a little change management activity that goes along with it. And if you build that in and always understand that, then over time you will be fine.
Yeah. No, that's great. Bob Latino really does a good job with that. I learned that from Bob a little bit, watching him facilitate some things. I'm like, wow, he is just so
Ab-
good at like making sure he's
Absolutely.
not the guy with the spotlight on him. You know,
Absolutely.
that's a wisdom thing. You've got that obviously. But that I think is the sign of a really good facilitator, that that about yourself, and it's not about you being there. It's about the outcome of the work that you facilitate while you're there. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And for us, because knowledge transfer is such a big part of what we do, it is how we're growing the organization as we go along. So it is how not just I turn around and present, but also members of the client organization present how they feel about their project, that they could walk to a conference and present about it with my support. I presented with my clients at two conferences this fall, and it was almost like, oh, my baby's graduated. It was just so exciting to see them present the work that they had done and to see them take ownership of it. And I know, I occupy a very temporary space in
Mm.
organizations, and that's by design. That's why I occupy a permanent space in my company of sorts, and then a temporary space in other people's companies, with the view that I will pull out and they should be able to stand up and sustain themselves and their systems when I'm gone. Because it isn't about me, it is about the organization.
I love that. And I'm going to make this really awkward for you based on that comment. Where can I learn more about you?
Well, I'd, I'd say, okay, first of all, I'm pretty much all over social media. I just had somebody tell me today, you're so accessible, so easy to find.
Yeah.
So I'm usually quite easy to find. But if you want to learn more about change management for asset management. We have a course that we have developed. It is in the final stages in East Partnership, and Luke has done a really good deal. So it is on pre-order. While it is on pre-order, it's only $299 US. So you can go on there, check out the course, and you can pre-order it. The price that it will go for when it gets up and running, which we expect by the end of the month, will be 349.
Yeah.
Yeah, 349 US. So in this course, we really take it from beginning. Where do you start? We talk about sustainability. We go through the engagements that you need to have when you're rolling out your asset management change. We talk about organizational changes, how they happen, excuse me, type of approaches, and so on. So if you want to learn more about that, then definitely check out the course. It's on pre-order now. And I look forward to seeing you in class. So what we try to do is that we try to marry the process parts of it, as Jose said. So we have other courses. We have introduction to asset management, we have executive leadership in asset management, asset information management. But the part of it that will go with all of those as you're doing them is really change management for asset management. And that's our kind of flagship course that we're pretty excited about launching right now.
Yeah, and just so you guys understand, if you haven't taken one of Suzanne's courses, and she will not brag about herself, so I'll do it for her. They are my favorite line of asset management classes ever. I mean, they're just fantastic. They are so informative. It's almost when you first get into the classes, you're like, okay, I'm ready to learn. And we actually just had someone make a comment this week, like, I don't think I've taken this many notes since I was in college. Like, there's that much knowledge just being pushed into these classes. It's so fantastic to have that. And if you really want to see someone who labors to produce the best course they possibly can, you're looking at her right there. She is
I'm I'm
fantastic.
excited to hear that. And don't complain about the questions, because I want you to have a quality experience in this course. I want you to learn, and I want you to be able to take away and retain the information. And not only retain the information, the questions that we ask are like case studies. So you're actually seeing how this could manifest in the workplace. Oh my goodness, Anil, I'm so excited. Welcome to asset management. I hope you're starting tomorrow. Um, take the courses, change your career. I'm happy. I love people who change their careers all the time. I've done that a lot in the past. So change a career as many times as you want.
It keeps things interesting, and it helps you take what you've learned one place and bring it to another. There you go.
Oh, yeah, please. I've been waiting. I've been waiting for you to definitely take the course, and we're planning to have that Winnipeg experience over in Virginia. So we're planning to come see you over there and have a fantastic time. But you know, sign up for the course. The courses are interesting, but they're also, we go beyond the academics. These
Yeah.
are application type courses. We
Yep.
build them for the experience that you're going to see when you're in industry,
Right.
and the questions are set up like that. It's set up for the hard questions. It's set up for the discussions that you're going to have at the water cooler, and the things that people are going to say behind your back when you're trying to implement the asset management system, and you're going to have to figure out how to deal with those things.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I am so fond of the way you've got the courses structured is that it's a challenge in the right way. Some people make classes hard just to, like you said, to be academically challenging.
Right.
These actually show you where application is going to be most challenged, and where you can be most prepared to apply the things you're learning in the course. And they're set up in a way that, even though they're on demand, so you have the flexibility to take them on your time, there's high levels of interaction with Suzanne via discussion. And then I host
Absolutely.
yeah, I host like a little get together every week for any student that wants to get up and talk about comments. So yeah, so
Absolutely.
good
And
stuff.
yeah, and we've taken the time. I'm glad you mentioned on demand self paced learning. We've also taken the time to ensure that the courses are delivered in bite size. So if 15 minutes is what you have, you could actually take a lesson.
Yeah.
If you have 30 minutes today, you can take a lesson today. And so we've broken it up like that because people are becoming more and more busy in their lives, and it's difficult to find 4 hours to sit down and do one course. So we build it in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, even 10 minutes, so that you can absorb one topic,
Right.
do a question on one topic, and really get that, internalize it properly.
Yeah. And you guys do this for a living. I mean, this is what Greeman Asset Management does. So, or
Absolutely.
Greeman Asset Management Solutions.
And
So,
yeah, and so, a lot of our courses now have come out of our experience with our clients over the years to say, um, people don't just want to hear what the asset management fundamental is. They want to see how it applies.
mhm.
What is value, but how does it actually apply in the organizational context?
Yeah, love it. Love it. And we love having you. Always, always, always like super informative. I don't care how many times I talk to Suzanne about, I could talk to her about the same topic like 4 or 5 times. Every single time I'm going to learn like tons every single time because she's just such a wealth of knowledge. And you've been in so many different industries and you're doing such great things to help people today as the leader of your organization. And we're grateful for you, Suzanne. And for those that don't know, she's a super busy lady. So like I had to twist arms and like send packages to Canada to get her here. But so don't get too used to her.
Oh, oh, it was an immense pleasure. I'm ever, ever, ever so happy to always to sit with you. It's amazing. I'm very, 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 very happy to be a part of East Partnerships. I'm happy for the way that we collaborate. Thank you for doing that gig in Winnipeg again, or well, this time it was Manitoba again. Last week, that was quite good.
I loved it.
The video is out. I just need to send the link out to everybody. But thank you so much for always being a great partner, and for being so supportive. And the courses wouldn't be what they are without you and without East Partnership. So I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Well, we love you. Big family. And
Yes.
if you guys want to check out Suzanne, you need to go check out Agreement Asset Management Solutions. What's your website?
www.greemanassetmanagement.com.
There you go. Go
Yeah.
check it out. And you know how to get a hold of me, and you know how to get a hold of Suzanne. So if you're not following her, I don't know what you're doing in life, but you're making bad life decisions. You need to follow her on LinkedIn. You need to get connected with Suzanne if you aren't. Don't if you're one of my friends and you're watching this and you're not connected with Suzanne, I don't need you in my friend because I'm always talking about her, and we are always trying to
Oh,
collaborate. And
oh my
she's
goodness.
she's the right kind of person. So.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Mainly, we just spend time laughing. That's what we do
Yeah,
all day, every day.
yeah. It gets even worse when we're at the bar in
Oh my
Winnipeg.
goodness.
It's even better.
Oh, that's amazing. We're gonna try to replicate that with pops over in Virginia. So,
Yeah, so
but
don't underestimate him because he's the kind of guy that if you're like, oh yeah, no, you should come to Winnipeg and get a beer, you're gonna like, he's gonna be like knocking on your door in a week, and you'll be like, you shut
I
up and
love
like,
it.
yeah, I'm here.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Oh look, we got Martin.
Oh, oh
Yeah,
my goodness. Martin, oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Big hugs right back at you. Thank
that's
you so
right.
much. I
We love
appreciate
Martin.
it, man.
He's
Yes.
awesome.
Thank
All right,
you.
well, hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Until next time with Miss Suzanne. Thank you so much, Suzanne.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you. And you guys stay tuned. We'll be announcing some new episodes soon. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe. Hopefully, you're watching this on LinkedIn. You keep your eye out for more LinkedIn Lives. We try to go every Wednesday at 4 o'clock Eastern time, but we adjust the times accordingly to get the best and brightest on the show, as is Suzanne. So, anyways, keep your eye out, and we will see all of you very soon. Have a good one.
Thank you so much. Be blessed. Stay well, everybody.
That's right. Be good people to each other.
Absolutely.